Hi everyone, thank you for checking out Combating Consensus this week. What we do in this piece every week is we take a look at those games where the public opinion is really strong on one side of the ledger or another, and I think that public faith is misplaced. Last week we picked the Washington Redskins to handle the New York Giants on Monday night, and we know how that game went. It came down to the wire, but Washington did come away with the win. We also picked in Western New York the Jaguars to beat the Bills despite public opinion. We were off a little bit on that one. The weather played a bit of a role. Chad Henne didn't look as good in that weather as he had in his previous two games for the Jags. Maybe the magic wore off him a little bit. So we missed that game. We were 1-1 last week. This week we just have one game on tap, and we're again focusing on the Washington Redskins. They're taking on the Baltimore Ravens this week, and public opinion is varying between about 52 and 57%, depending on where you get your consensus from, supporting the Baltimore Ravens either way. So it's a closer game than most of what we pick here, but I still think that the public faith should be a lot stronger on the side of the Redskins. And number one, I think that's because they're at home. Baltimore, as we know, has struggled on the road. Now they are 4-1 in their last 5 on the road. They're riding a 3-game win streak away from Baltimore, so it's not like they're losing every game they play there, and they're still a strong team. We know that, but they do look different. I think that's pretty clear from the tape. It's pretty clear from what most analysts think as well, and whether they like to admit it or not, I think it's pretty clear to the team too. Their numbers aren't good away from home. They barely got by the Chargers, for example, a few weeks ago, and also they just squeaked out the win against the Steelers as well. So not a dominant team on the road. Certainly they should have won that game against the Chargers a lot more handily than they did. In fact, without overtime, they wouldn't have done it, and really they didn't deserve to, pardon me. So I don't like them away from home. I also like that Washington comes into this game riding a 3-game win streak. During that span, too, they're putting up almost 29 points a game of offense, and that's with just 17 that they scored against the Giants in a winning effort last week. So they're putting points on the board. The offense looks pretty good coming out of the bye. Robert Griffin's moving the ball on the ground and also in the air. His completion percentage is pretty high, certainly not where it was at college, but he's making high percentage passes, but he's not afraid to take a play down the field as well. And with Pierre Garçon back on the field now, you're seeing a few of those deep shots, and I think that you're seeing them pay off, and you'll see that against the Ravens perhaps this week. But the game really comes down to the run game for me. At home, Washington has the league's best run offense. Meanwhile, on the road, again, where they've struggled, they don't run the ball so well in Baltimore, but they also don't defend it so well. The 30th against the run this year, and that's with guys like Terrell Suggs on the field. Now, he may play this week, but we know that Suggs is going to be limited due to that torn bicep that he suffered, and they've got a whole bunch of injuries on defense, and even when they're at full strength, they're not the Baltimore Ravens of old, as we know. In particular, they're getting beat by the run, and I think that Washington is a team that can really continue that against them. Meanwhile, speaking of the run, Baltimore got away from it last week. Again, they were at home, against Pittsburgh, but they got away from the run and they got beat. We all know the statistic, or at least we know generally of it, that when Ray Rice gets the ball 20 times, the Ravens win. When he doesn't, their winning percentage is considerably lower. Was a mistake last week, and I expect that Cam Cameron's going to try to remedy it, but I also think that the Redskins know this, and they're going to try to dominate the clock game, keep the ball in the hands of Alfred Morris, look a little bit of that zone read option that's been working very well for them, and try to keep the chains moving with the ground game, keep their defense, which is missing a couple of guys in the secondary this week, off the field so that Rice isn't causing damage and so that Joe Flacco can't find Torrey Smith. But as I said, Flacco hasn't really done a whole lot of that, particularly on the road this year. I like the look of the Redskins. I like them to try and keep pace in the NFC East, and I just don't like what the Ravens are doing away from home. Washington's run defense, it's worth noting, speaking of Rice, they're only giving up 91.5 rushing yards per game, so if Cam Cameron's the kind of guy that gets away from the run early, I think that he will do that in this game because he might be discouraged with the early results, whether it's Pierce or Rice. Washington does do a pretty good job of stopping the opponent's ground game, so he may get discouraged. We may see the ball go to Joe Flacco into his hands more often than the Ravens would like, and we may see some problems as a result of that. So those are my reasons this week. Really, it's as simple as seeing the road matchup, seeing a hot team, not liking what the Ravens are doing, and just a point worth mentioning, Baltimore, after playing Pittsburgh the last 19 times, they are 9-10 in their next game. Now, as we know, over the past 10 or so seasons, which that encompasses, Baltimore's had a pretty good winning percentage, but they can't seem to win after they face the Steelers. We could think about all the energy and effort that they put into those games. Maybe it's hard to get amped up for the next one. I think that might be part of it. And it's a trend worth noting, and it's another thing that goes against them this week. So one more reason to feel good about picking the Redskins. I think you roll with that. The spread is pretty small here, so maybe it's a good play either on the money line or otherwise. But I think Washington wins this ball game comfortably against the Ravens, and after that, we start to think about their playoff chances pretty realistically, while we get concerned about whether or not the Ravens can hold on in the AFC North. That's it for this week. We'll see how it goes on Sunday, and check us out in Week 15. Thanks.